Now, for today's show. To celebrate the final day of Men's Health Week, I'm bringing something a bit out of the box and very, very special. For those of you who know my work and the lived experiences that underpin it, today we're honouring the story of Hypothetical Harry. Hypothetical Harry is a made-up story based on many real ones that's emerged from the privilege of sitting alongside countless men over many years. Often I meet them at times of profound vulnerability and pain, times when life's experiences and circumstances, many beyond their choosing or control, have left them struggling to make sense of who they are, where they belong, and how to keep going. So let's rewind back to May of this year at the Workplace Health and Safety Show in Melbourne. I was there presenting a session on men's health in the workplace where I told the story of Hypothetical Harry. And after I'd finished, a bloke bowled straight up to the stage and announced with tears in his eyes, "Hi, I'm Hypothetical Harry, and you just told my story." It's not the first time I've heard this, because everyone knows a version of Harry or has lived it, and many tragically have not survived being Hypothetical Harry. Today, the person behind Hypothetical Harry, whom I met back in May, joins me on the show to share his story and talk about what's helped him survive and find purpose. We'll talk about the weight that relationship breakdown, financial distress, separation from children, and loss of identity can place on men, and why these experiences, when combined with the social, biological, and commercial influence, can leave some men carrying burdens that eventually become too much to bear. We'll also spend time exploring what workplaces, particularly high-risk, mostly male ones, can do to better recognise the many versions of Hypothetical Harry who turn up each day, regardless of their state, and how we might create environments and systems that keep them and everyone around them safe. Mostly, though, we'll be hearing and understanding what it feels like being this version of Hypothetical Harry, because every person has a story, and sometimes hearing someone else's can help us better understand our own. Welcome to the show, Harry.
Thank you so much, Rae. Great to be meeting with you this morning.
And thank you for trusting me, an almost complete stranger, with your story.
Thank you. Yeah, it takes me back to May. You know, our meeting wasn't really one of, I guess, pain, but for me it was about curiosity. And seeing you there on presenting that particular day, it really triggered some thoughts, and decided to sit down and listen, and was just blown away with what you had to say, and resonated so much.
What took you to the show in the first place?
Yeah, well, I sort of, I guess, networking really, and being a safety professional in the construction industry was the draw, and but this is probably not an area that I don't think gets enough exposure, and I want to learn. And you know, I use the word curious. I'm quite a curious human, so I'm always trying to learn in that space and improve.
Yeah. Well, was it your first time at the show?
It wasn't. No, it was second.
Okay.
Yeah.
So health and safety is it means something to you in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And you're my demographic, being high risk, heavy industry, mostly male workspaces. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing in the psychosocial evolution of health and safety that is, I guess, progressing at the moment?
Yeah, look, it's, for me, I've been in the industry now, I think 37 years. It was always about those sort of traditional approaches and to risk measurement, if you like, and a lot of metrics around injury frequency rates and lost time injuries, and certainly reporting numbers. It was all about that, and I've got a particular view on that. But, Can
you share that particular view?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I guess my appetite for safety was the Longford gas explosion, which down in Esso plant, 90 tested me now. I think it was 1997, and I remember receiving a phone call from a mate who was on the platform asking me where I was, and I was at the Apex Park with my daughter then, and in the playground, and he said, look towards Longford, and I was in Stratford, not far, and I could see this plume of smoke, and that was the explosion that took 2 men's lives and injured many more. That was on the Friday. I started there on the Monday. For the 2-week restoration, Victoria had no gas supply. So, it was a real impact, not only on our workforce, Rae, but certainly families, and certainly also, I think, sometimes overlooked communities.
Absolutely. It was actually 1998. I remember.
I was 12 months out.
Yeah, well, my son was born and he was a baby, and,
you
know, bathing him in the kitchen sink for a significant period of time. And I don't think many people actually realise the gravity of that event, because Victoria was mourning the loss of gas, not the loss of people.
Of course, and that curiosity probably was embedded back then. And, you know, I did some research on it and did some studies and read a book by a doctor, Dr. Berger, and the title was Imagine Dying at Work. And he talked about, you know, the presiding judge, and the focus was on the LTI injuries, and the judge mentioned that. You've got these figures. There's so much importance on 200,000 hours of, you know, worked without zero injuries, but your safe operating procedures, sitting in the corner collecting dust, the maintenance and the training towards your own people is lacking. And it just really struck home. That, and then, as we know, they wheeled in the Texan lawyers, and so the poor old panel operator at the time was he had to shoulder that blame.
Yeah. Well, we've come a long way since then, and I think, you know, Australia, especially Victoria, the most compliant piece of space on the planet. We have come a long way, but not nearly long enough. But I remember, ironically, being in Longford in about 2014 or 2015, and visiting one of the sites, and I was sitting in the shed with the site manager, and we were talking about, you know, mental health in the workplace at that stage, when it was way before we were calling it psychosocial health and safety. And I noticed that his office, it was so beautifully set out. He had all these ring binders lined up. His walls were lined with ring binders. And he said, you know, I said, what's in there? And he goes, well, that's all my compliance stuff. Like, I've got everything ticked off. It's all neatly filed away. And I looked out the window at the site, and it was an effing mess. Like, you would have just died just walking out there. There was just so many hazards that I could just see with my naked eye. I said, how does this keep people safe? And he said, well, it's compliant. And I'll never forget that conversation, that it was just so patently obvious that nobody could be safe with things filed in ring binders.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think we're getting out of those systems now, thanks to technology and, you know, even AI to a degree, that we're bringing things right out onto the site, into the hands of people when it's actually happening.
Yeah, well, I think we've got the evolution of software now too, haven't we, really? And, you know, you sort of, your risk matrix and that have developed over time, and that's got to be good. But I guess, you know, when I talk about those traditional sort of metrics, for me, it's, you know, we report those low incident rates, you know, in those environments, but we don't always look at the sort of, reflect the exposure, and we don't always sort of, you know, talk about it before the event. We always talk about it after the event.
Still very reactive, aren't we?
Correct.
I want to just scoot you back though, because we did run down a path there, which is an important one, but take us back to the day when we met. And did you know that you were going to be sitting in my audience?
Absolutely no idea.
How did you find it?
Look, to be honest, I was just looking for some sort of
somewhere to sit.
Somewhere to sit. For memory, I had sort of tote bags on either arm and collecting freebies as we were walking through. And, you know, I saw this stage set up with several seats provided, and I thought, yeah, I'll take one of those and had a look at the running sheet and saw your name and convinced myself that that would be good for me to lend an ear.
Because it mentioned men's health?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Had you seen any address to that before in a conference or a show?
No, I hadn't. And it's probably typical of many construction sites that I've been on, Rae, that we emblazon our sites with posters. And to a degree, we're still doing that. Yes, we've got the men's health posters up and but it's all great, the promotion of it, but let's get into the real talk.
Well, that's right. You can talk about it.
I can,
and, say we care through posters or through those ring binder kind of actions. But I know for myself, having been pretty heavily invested in this for the last 20 years, it's only been relatively recently that I have been allowed to speak about men's health so explicitly in these public events. And it was only a few years ago it was quite dissuaded, encouraged if you're going to speak about it, make sure you're not mentioning certain topics, especially things like, violence against men or any of those social determinants or biological determinants that affect men. Don't mention them. And it's just gobsmacking when you think about the state of men's health and what kills men is why we would not be investing more into that.
Absolutely, and one thing that did resonate with me at that particular forum you spoke at was, the women movement, and I guess, the grounds they've made and quite significant ones. And I have 3 sisters, one sadly departed last year, but strong feminist women in my family, and I've been educated through them really, and but really the men and the role models in my life somewhat different, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. It was almost like the family of 7 from the country. It was, we've got 3 Mother Teresas and 4 guys that like to fight and drink. It's quite a contrast. But that's the country and that's the environment I was raised in.
Yes, and it's very easy just to normalise it like that and write it off. But when it affects individual people who then affect other people, and in my interest, those determinants come into already high risk environments, i.e. the workplace, and escalate risk 100-fold. And we're not quite looking at that yet, especially when, compliance includes you must have a risk register. And so people create these beautiful risk registers and they file them away neatly and waiting for the auditors to come to say, here they are, look, isn't this great? Yes, that's fantastic, done. But rarely do they include people.
And that's such a great point, the project I'm on currently. We have 3, not 1, but 3 audits the month of June. I mean, seriously?
For what?
Compliance.
I understand, but for what purpose?
Oh, yeah, no, we've got the internal, we've got the government auditors, the federal office, and then we've got the client. So, we talk about working at heights and suspended loads and, hazardous substances and energy isolations, and we go through all that. But do we talk about fatigue and impairment? Do we talk about workplace violence? Do we talk about men's health? You won't find that in your glossy binders.
No, because people don't know how to address it. And, there's this zero-sum kind of idea that if we give to men, we're taking away from women. And, when you sort of just open up to talk about, the women in your life that you grew up with, i.e. your sisters and your mother, the feminist movement, amazing. I would not be sitting here today if it weren't for that movement and the initiatives of women. And I'm eternally grateful for that. And it just has me very curious how women have moved so far and men are still in the same place. They've not evolved. And is that around can we be taking more from the examples that women set back then? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. So men's health is an everybody's issue, and everyone contributes to moving this along. And I think it's been sort of expected that men just do it on their own, and that's not working. So involve as many heads as possible, I think.
The real, I guess, eye-opener for me was moving into the fly in, fly out. You know, when I've done a few different, projects over my time, in my experience, and again, that's at another level, Ray. You know, yes, there are women in that particular workplace, but just living in a camp with 3,000, mainly men, you know, as silly as this sounds, if you have a really crappy cook in that camp and the meals are rubbish, that can really make the 2 weeks quite hard. If you are in a block of dongas, they call them, where you are setting up and sleeping, and you've got, let's just use the Maori scaffolders. They love their singing and their music, and they're playing and music and drinking alcohol till 1 a.m. in the morning, and you're getting no sleep. That can really weigh heavily on a 12-hour day.
Oh, no sleep is, I mean, you might as well be drunk.
Correct. And you know, I was in central Queensland. I'm not kidding when I'm talking 45, 46 degree temperatures. And, you know, there was huge drinking culture. We had a raid as well. I can remember the police raided it. I think they might have busted a certain group of men that were selling steroids in the camp. Mm. But I've seen in my time men take their own lives in those camps. I've seen in my time bomb threats, albeit on the back of a payslip. So pretty easy to identify who sent it.
Wow.
And there was one particular job in WA, in the Pilbara, where an individual decided it was a good idea to steal a light plane. So,
is that people behaving unusually under pressurised circumstances? I mean, you mentioned heat, no sleep, away from your family. I don't think there's any kind of support systems you can put in place to make that better for the human condition.
I've heard the acronym changed, FIFO, from its original meaning, fly in, fly out, to fit in or F off.
Oh, okay.
That'll give you a bit of shape around it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's you're trying to fit into the norm, and all those things I just mentioned are considered norm.
Yeah.
You know, I get some good bands up there in my time. You know, saw the Choir Boys, I saw the Radiators, and saw Mental as Anything. Yeah, all paid by the client, obviously, but
did that help?
No, it didn't. It probably increased my alcohol content around that time, and then you got to blow 00 numbers in the morning to commence work at 6.
Not to mention consumption of alcohol just absolutely eradicates your dopamine, your serotonin, your oxytocin. All your happiness hormones are gone. So how do you then get up every day and function for 12 hours in extreme conditions? You know, if you don't have dopamine, I mean, dopamine is your key driver. It's the thing that pushes you to do things.
I saw a real loneliness in those particular places too. You know, there was actually workers, Ray, that I don't think they had any fixed address. They just went from camp to camp, job to job. And that's okay, earning your 250, 300K a year. But if you're a lonely, heavy drinker, substance user, I asked myself, what for?
Was that you?
No.
Were you somewhere in between?
I was married at the time.
Yeah.
But that was shortly lived as well.
Yeah.
I went through a real hardship.
Well, we'll talk about that in the next segment.
Yeah,
Save that up. But and I don't want to cut this short because now I'm thinking I want to do a whole show on FIFO and Dido. I really do, because you really don't often. We get to hear it from the organisations and what they're doing about mitigating risk, but rarely do you hear a person give their end-to-end experience of what that's like. So maybe we'll talk a bit more about it, but I still want to go back to this bit because I didn't ask you at the time. When you were sitting in the audience, when I was speaking, what was going through your mind?
Yeah, great question. It was the years of child support that I had to meet, the commitments, the examination by those Commonwealth departments into about my wage earning, my assets, how I still don't know how I got through that. You know, a single man versus an access parent, I think it's such an area that we could spend a lot of time talking about.
Can you just describe that in a bit more detail for people that are listening in that don't know what that means?
Yeah, sure. Look, so when a family unit splits up by divorce or separation, the male typically would apply to the courts to have access to the child or children. In my case, it was the child, and just to get visitation rights, to get school holidays, to get time on Christmas Day. Not a day, time on Christmas Day, time on Father's Day, has to all go before the courts if you're unable to reach agreement with the other party. And I had to do that twice over.
So access to your child was limited?
Yes, it was.
And then financially, how did that affect you trying to see your child? Did you lose financial security through the courts?
Yeah, I did. And I was living in Brunswick one particular Christmas, and my daughter and I had Vegemite sandwiches on Christmas lunch.
Where had all your money gone?
Child support, in and out of jobs, counsellors.
Did you have to? Were you in court?
Rent,
were you in court as well?
Yeah, and some of the times.
Did you have to pay for that too?
Yeah.
So that's a big financial drain. From my experience working with versions of Hypothetical Harry, you know, it's the relationship breaks down and then the financial distress comes next, because just to see your child, whether it's supervision you have to pay for, whether it's trying to get access through the courts, you have to pay for all of that.
Well, I would hate to think what the cost would be now, Rae, but it was $160 an hour I was paying.
It's about $300 now.
There you go. And I don't know how men can do that with the cost of living the way it is today. But, you know, it was the evolution of a thing called mediation back then. And, you know, I thought mediation had to work with the two parties present. I went to the family court on 2 occasions and the former wife didn't even turn up. That's a day off work. That's all that, the cost for the application. Then you got the human, you know, effects on top of that when you end up back to where you started. You know, and, you know, I ended up changing legal firms about 3 times, but it was explained to me in no uncertain terms that you cannot hang your hat on the fact that you think that the other party's not doing the parenting job well. There are heroin users known throughout history that still have their children. You know, my daughter was at the time, I found her in Heathcote with her mother. I got a phone call on a photo in the mail. Former partner was beaten. Obviously, my concern was around my daughter and her living arrangements. So I drove up there and got them. the car that I'd purchased for the ex-wife, while our marriage was still going, was just damaged, being jumped on, and it was just, God knows what the inside of the house looked like. I wasn't prepared to have a look at that, but...
So you had no control over the safety of your daughter?
And then I ran into that financial hardship I spoke about, and, my dear late mother at the time, I said, look, I'm going to go to Darwin. I've got a job in the Timor Sea, and it's going to pay for my legal costs. Can you look after our daughter, for 3 weeks while I'm there? She was a saint, my mother. And, dear Patricia, and no longer with us. But I can still recall a solicitor saying to me, if you really cared about your daughter so much, you would have spent those 3 weeks with her. I didn't have 50 cents to my name, and to hear that, it didn't sit well with me, and because I was just running out of money, I was running out of reason, I was running out of thinking. I was running on empty, Rae.
So when you were listening to the story of Hypothetical Harry, as I told it that day, you were just going, that's me, that's me.
That's me.
That's me.
I guess, the only thing that I didn't do was consider taking my own life, but certainly, I was in a pretty bad place, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and I've changed that around.
Could you describe what you looked like back then?
I remember, one of those FIFO jobs. I went to a psychiatrist. I think that was about $180 an hour, and he gave me some antidepressants, which I was a little bit reluctant and quite sketchy about using. What I know today is they don't work well with alcohol. And a workmate knocked on the house door one morning, I think. Yes, it was. Yeah, Greg come around, and I was just banging from side to side of the walls, and he's like, mate, you don't look great. I'm going, no, I'm just taking this medication I've just been given. But, I was, beer and wine was my story, and part of my story, and I was certainly, self-medicating as well on that.
Yeah. It's such a common thing, and also, that prescription that is handed to you at the doctor's to fix you, which is to fix your depression or your sadness or your anxiety. Very rarely, in my experience, are men asked what else is going on in their life, i.e., how much are you drinking? Are you taking any other recreational drugs to get you through? And when that question isn't asked, then that combination of medication and alcohol can be absolutely lethal, especially around suicidal ideation, can really, really increase that.
I do recall, and this individual was quite a caring, nurturing soul, and I didn't think they existed in the HR department of several companies, but this particular person said, are you okay? She walked into my office. I said, I'm actually struggling a bit. She goes, you look terrible. You look edgy. You look a little bit off. And I said, yeah, I am. I said, I think my marriage is at risk of falling apart. She said, I'm booking a flight for you this afternoon. You're getting on that plane. You're heading back to Melbourne. So we're talking 2,500 kilometres from Melbourne. 3-hour bus trip out of Roma. For those that, want a geographic, that's where I was. So I flew out of Roma into Brisbane, straight to the bar in Brisbane Airport and then on to Melbourne. And I come home and it just happened to be the ex's birthday. And I rock up to the dance class where my daughter was doing jazz ballet. And I can still remember the look and the words. She saw me and she cornered her eye. She said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I thought I'd surprise you. It's your birthday." And she said, "I've got plans."
Wow.
So, yeah, they're the things that you are expected, I think, to carry with you and to manage. You know, the word manage, I keep coming back to the word manage, and I don't think anyone's got any idea how to manage it. You know, here I've got a psychiatrist giving me stuff, and I got my fridge at home full of grog. 2 weeks in searing heat, you know, you up at 4 o'clock, your bags are packed on that departure day. You know, you have a quick bite, you jump on a 3-hour bus journey from Walevi Creek to Roma, middle of central Queensland. You fly home and that's what you receive.
Yeah.
You know, it's a real, it was hard, you know, and, you know, I booked counselling sessions from that day on.
How did that make you feel in that moment?
Lonely, ambushed, terribly defeated, because I put a lot into it. And this is the point, right? This is the point. They might be like Hollywood wages that you're on, and, you know, just before I sign this contract, I would like you to look at it. Wow, that's a senior position. Yeah. That's great money. You're there for 2 weeks. You get a week home. Yep. Oh, sign it. So, you know, I might have had the lovely 4-bedroom house, you know, in a Bayside suburb, and the beach shack down at Inverloch. Life's looking good, but I had a hole in the soul. And, you know, the shiny new toys and the healthy bank account, it's not, there's more to life than that. And I know that today, but we are seduced by all those things.
Yeah, and that's where alcohol's an amazing friend to fill up that, that hole.
You know, and coming from the earlier piece where I talked about I couldn't rub 2 coins together, to suddenly I've got this opportunity. So there you go.
And if you look at it from the Hypothetical Harry context, that's all about serving other people as well.
100% it is.
And the choices that you make are contingent on making other people happy and comfortable themselves. So whilst you like your toys and you like what your money brings, you still have to go and perform that work under extenuating circumstances that it's not only physical but mentally just relentless.
I ran a team as well while I was up there. So, you know, here I was serving others. Yeah, I had half a dozen guys under my charge.
So by the time you came to see me when I hopped off the stage, and, you know, one of the beautiful things about presenting is wondering what's going to happen next, and you never know what's going to come out of somebody, but it's always something. It's always something that I would never expect. And, you know, to see your face, it was more that was on your face that what came out of your mouth that really resonated with me. And, you know, I was very grateful that you chose to actually let me know what that meant to you.
For me, it was the connection of the heart, you know, through storytelling, and I love storytelling. And, you know, someone that's sort of procedurally based roles that I've been doing for a long, long time in the construction industry, and reading and ticking and signing, to have someone actually tell the story of where I've been and where I am today, it was, it certainly filled my cup that particular morning.
Well, this week being Men's Health Week, I've been able to tell the story of Hypothetical Harry on numerous occasions, and I can tell you that there's a line of men who had the same response as you have. But the beautiful thing about Hypothetical Harry's story is that it inspires people to tell theirs and seek help.
It inspired me, you know, and to to give life another go and to seek a new relationship. And I'm so blessed and grateful that I've got the lovely, person in my life that I can share it with. And, we're engaged now. And
oh, congratulations.
And, that's it. I'm really thankful for that. That, she's seen me at my worst but now she gets a chance to see me at my best.
Yeah.
And that's
but you've made that happen.
Yeah, I have, and I continue to, I guess, fly the flag, if you like.
Well, you're here flying it loud and proud today on live radio, which incidentally is streamed all over the world. So who knows who's listening in, but I'm pretty sure there'll be people that are resonating and people that are absolutely just gobsmacked saying, I didn't think about it that way, which is what this show's all about. What does it feel like being you today? Means, well, we're all, any minute of every day that can change for people. We don't know. In fact, I had one of those instances on Thursday. I was out at the Western Treatment Plant in Melbourne, which is Werribee Sewage Farm, and I was presenting to the crew at John Holland who are running that project out there. It's my second year in a row. And anyway, it's a fabulous event. Like those men in that room, it was probably 300 or 400 men in the room. And you could have heard a pin drop. And then afterwards, it's just this gratitude and people just really, really resonating. And also John Holland's investment in men's health is genuine. Anyway, I had to then go and present to another large construction company in the city straight afterwards. So anyone who's not in Melbourne won't know Werribee, but it's a bit of a distance, about an hour drive from Melbourne. So I hopped back on the road. That's
a nice way of describing it. It's got a few other things we could call.
That's right. It's got a zoo. But anyway, so I'd arrived at 6 o'clock in the morning in the dark, and now it was like sort of 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was light. I hopped back on the road that I came in on, and of course they'd started work at this stage, so this road was now closed. So I'm all right. So I breathe and go, okay, I'll just rely on my my Google Maps. So I turned the car around, and it wasn't engaging in where I was to go next. It just wasn't telling me. But then all of a sudden, it showed me I could turn left up this dirt road. So I go, okay, I'm going to risk this because there doesn't seem to be any other road in sight. So I turned left up this road, and what did I bang straight into? About 300 cows going to milking. There was no way out of this. It was a wall of cows. And these kelpie dogs running around herding them up. And so I had a choice here. I could either get very stressed that I was going to be late, or I could just enjoy this amazing picture of these beautiful girls walking up the road with their udders full of milk that's going to go and serve our communities, and these dogs doing such an amazing job. So I just, for 2.5 kilometres, I idled along at about 5 k's an hour. And then the universe helped me and got me back on the road. And I arrived at my next event bang on and without us. But, I think those situations really underscore that we never know what's coming up next, but it's what we do with what we've got that makes the difference. And I think that's probably what you're going to be able to tell us next, is that going through this experience when you get down to brass tacks and all you have in the world is you. That's it. So hopefully you're going to be able to illustrate to us sort of your trajectory, and then we can talk about sort of the things that you did do to get you to the point where you're engaged this beautiful woman, because she's actually in the studio with us, and you can tell that there is something special going on here. And we're going to talk about this engagement when we get off, when we go to this break. So we are going to a break. And now, Harry, before we go too far, it's that time where I've clumsily coined the very special guest song request. So this is where I give you a very cryptic clue about one of your songs, and you have to guess which one it is that we're going to play. So it could have to do with the song, the title, the artist name, any other loose thread
it's a bit like Sam's drip tray on the front bar, is it?
I don't know. I don't watch that, but it could be. Maybe he copied that from me, because I've been doing this for years.
Of course.
So Does that make sense?
Of course, yeah.
Here's the clue. Rusty Horse. Think about the songs.
Neil Young.
That's the one. And what's it called?
Hey, hey, my, my.
What a great name for a song. What does that mean to you?
I often listen to it Saturday afternoons. I've got a vinyl record collection, another interest that I've now taken up. And I just think he's a very raw individual. He's just, there's nothing too glamorous about him to look at. You know, there's no... He wouldn't like Spotify and all that stuff. He's just Neil Young, you know. He's got his guitar and he's sort of him and Tom Petty.
He'd love that he's on Spotify though, because he'd get royalties for every. He's about to get royalties now.
But he's a guy that was born with polio.
Really?
Yeah, and a lot of his songs are just, you know, I felt they're from the heart.
Yeah.
You know, and. Yeah, I just think he's an amazing artist. I like him.
Well, here we are. Don't go away, folks. When we come back, we're going to be diving deep into the trajectory that is our version of Hypothetical Harry today. So you're listening to 94.1 FM, 3WBC. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC and you're with Rae Bonney. And this morning I'm joined by a very special guest known simply as Hypothetical Harry, telling a story that reflects the experiences of many men whose lives have taken unexpected directions, often shaped by circumstances beyond their choosing or control and not always supported by systems designed to deliver fair and equitable outcomes. What do you think of that? Nice, isn't it? Now, bit of a fun fact that I only discovered this morning when I was on Facebook for some reason, and at 3WBC, like I've been on air here for 12 years, which is hardly any time compared to other broadcast or other presenters like Tony Fidolani before, who's been here for 30 odd years. But the panel that you see in front of us, listeners, you can't see it, but I can. They're 40-year-old panels. And, so anyone in the community that hasn't heard of the suburban rail loop would be living under a rock. But what most won't know is that they have a community fund that helps give back to the people. So thanks to the suburban rail loop community fund and some determined people behind the scenes here at 3WBC, we're getting brand new panels after 40 years with these old faithfuls we are using today. So it's just such a lovely reminder that investing in communities isn't always about the big things. Sometimes it's about making sure local voices and conversations continue to be heard, just like ours today. So I'm a bit concerned about the training I'm going to have to do on a new panel. So I pretty much trained myself with the help of dear Ken Lyons, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, but he was a great supporter of 3WBC and contributed so much to the community. It's a bit of a shout out to Ken Lyons. So Harry, we're sort of up to that bit now where we're going to talk about where it all started with you to where it is now. So, like, you were born in the country.
That's right.
In Victoria?
Regional Victoria, yeah.
Yep. Big family.
7.
Yep.
Father was a builder. He employed 120 men. Quite different times. You know, the process to gain employment with my father's building firm was a knock on the back door. And if Patty, my mum, liked you, you got a job. So there's your HR process there. Very simple, but effective. Probably
HR could learn a lot from Patty, your mum.
Yeah. So look at, I was around men. The yard was next door to a house, township of 4,000 people, Rae, 120 men, like I said, from concreters to builders to truck drivers to admin staff, and these people were my world. The truck driver, I just loved him. His nickname, Curly, and not like off the Three Stooges, but he was just curly because of his hair. But, and obviously, my brother was there as well. It was a bit of a family business. My uncle was part of this, the estimated crew, but he sort of did a lot of work from the border right through to sort of West Gippsland. There was sort of cars and trucks on the road all the time, and sort of the Christmas parties. The Christmas parties were, alcohol and more alcohol. And it's funny that here we are on a Sunday morning, 10 a.m, Ray. It takes me back that my two elder brothers, they ran the barrel at the footy club. And what that essentially means, running a barrel, is, for those that not familiar, that's about 81 litres of beer.
Yeah.
And they would tap the barrel at 10 a.m. every Sunday morning. And I'd be hanging around then, and all these men drinking beer.
Wow.
Dad was also a heavy drinker. But straight after church on a Sunday morning, the long neck bottles would come out, and him and Pop would be watching, Lou Richards, Jack Dyer, and Rollo Roy Lance on World of Sport. By the time Mum served the roast, two brothers come home half cut. My dad was drunk. Mum's serving the roast, and I'm just looking around as a 7 and 8 year old observing all this, going, I thought that was normal. I thought that's what everyone did. But I went through life and down there, and
what was education like for you?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I went to Catholic upbringing and school. The interesting thing for me was the two elder brothers I spoke about. They boarded. I think back in sort of country Victoria, your families had a little bit of money. The boys or girls went to boarding school, so that was my situation. I didn't go to boarding school, but my two brothers went to Chanel in Geelong. My sister went to Kilbreda and Mentone, and my brother went to St Bede's in Mentone also. So, but yeah, we went locally, and I didn't enjoy it much. There was brothers of some denomination. I don't know, it was Marist or Christian, I can't remember. But there was a lot of bad publicity around that, about what they were getting up to, and that particular college was sort of earmarked, I think, as one of those that there was things happening that were horrendous to young students. And I think now, again, I look back, I can remember going up a river in an aluminium tinny boat with one of those brothers, and he was showing me the river system, but it was only me and him. You wouldn't be able to do that these days. Yeah, sure, I had a life jacket on, but I was 13 years old, and it's amazing when we go from 2026 today to 1993. 1992, quite different times.
Very different. Well, I was born in the 60s, so I reflect back to those days.
Actually, it's the 80s.
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant to say 83. 82 and 83 is what I meant to say. Sorry, apologise. I lost a decade there somewhere.
Probably all that boozing you did back then.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah, safety, you think about safety back then to safety now. There are a lot of people that reflect on the golden days of childhood that we're now sort of so restrained, and kids don't have the freedom that they had back then. But I also reflect, as I said, I was born in the 60s, and I reflect back on the lack of safety. You just described it a little bit there. That's freedom to go and do whatever you want. But so many kids got affected, died, or now affected in adult life by the harms that were caused during that time that are often unspoken, especially in boys.
Yeah, I think freedoms were different. I I look back again, and as a 14-year-old, my mum was happy for me to jump on a train and go and watch my beloved Tigers at the MCG. And as a 14-year-old, I, attended the grand final.
Wow.
Against Carlton. So sadly, we didn't win that one. But would that happen today? I don't know. I don't know whether it would.
Not with a child of mine. I wouldn't allow that to happen.
The same 14-year-old, entered in a raft race with 3 of his mates, paddling up a river. One thing you do in the country, you learn how to swim pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So that was never a concern. But I just don't think today we are producing young males as resilient as we think we are. And certainly in my time, and I'm no sort of aficionado to talk in that space, but I just think that after coaching local footy, and after sort of in a professional sense mentoring a lot of apprentices, 100 and something, I see quite a different individual, and I certainly see really, really overprotective parents.
Well, that's right. So is it the kids that aren't resilient, or is it how they're being raised? You've gone from this very barbaric raising of boys, which still exists today in many situations, to the overprotective and not able to grow that part of your brain, that mid-cingulate cortex, which doing hard things grows that part of your brain so you can do more hard things. And quite often you'll see that parents want to overcompensate for the harms that were done to them and don't want any harm to come to their children. So they will pick up the bag for almost everything. And we've got to find some kind of balance, I think.
I speak to my 19-year-old daughter about this, Rae, and I said, do you know what Dad used to do when he wanted to see someone? He got on his push bike and he visited them. And he also drank out of the garden hose. And I absolutely horrified. What? You drank out of the garden hose? Yeah, that's water. You don't have to go and drink something from the French Alps, in a really fancy bottle and pay $4.80 for it. And this is the thing, right? So here my curfew was, as soon as the street lights come on, get it, you got to be home.
Yes, but like what I was just saying before, during that time when your parents don't have eyes on you, that's where so many kids, where predators had free reign on kids. And, my rooms are full of men sort of in their 50s and 60s for the first time talking about what happened to them during those times.
Sure.
And so I think, again, that there's a bit of a balance. Also as human beings, we evolve, and we evolve always for more comfort and more convenience. And as our populations increase, you could ride your bike around the streets back in the 80s, but now there are so many more cars on the road, there is just so much more happening, people are more distracted. Kids really are genuinely more at risk riding their bikes.
On e-bikes, yeah.
Absolutely. E-bikes, e-scooters, whatever it might be,
yeah.
But we're not going to stop evolution.
Correct.
But we can, I think, even if we go back to, say, the health and safety show, how that's evolved. I've been speaking there for about 5 years, and how that's evolving in terms of the kinds of education we're getting from the speakers is totally different to 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we're just talking about trips, sleeps, falls, and, here's some great high vis you can wear, to now opening it up to the psychosocial health and safety lens that, we've been so fortunate to have here in Australia now.
Yeah, I think, there's a whole world where I could talk about operating.
So I've just totally flipped the script on your meandering through your childhood. But I guess where I'm heading with that piece is your childhood sounds like you had a good, solid family, you had a good education, you had relatively good role models. You had a whole drinking culture that you were involved in. But would you say that your childhood was quite solid?
Absolutely, I would.
So how did you choose a life that ended up where it did?
Looking at my 2 elder brothers, single, heavy drinkers, I can't even remember either of them having a girlfriend. As simple as that sounds, they were hard worker, hard drinker type of model, if you like. I looked at that and go, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that. And, hitchhiked to Brisbane one particular Christmas, and again, pretty risque sort of thing.
Was that to get away from
just
that, or just
felt like it?
Yep.
We'd go up to Tathra, at the pub up there, and see bands like Rose Tattoo and Australian Crawl and Dragon and Deborah Conway, and I said, I'm just going to, I just jumped on the highway and hitchhiked and went all the way up to Brisbane, and visited a friend and that saw this girl there, and we struck up a friendship, and it later formed something else. And upon she coming back to Melbourne, we started dating, and she fell pregnant, Rae. And at the age of 23, I thought it was the right thing for me to do, and was to get married. And so, her mother was dying of cancer at the time, so there was some sort of external pressures to get the job done, if you know what I mean. And that lasted 12 months. That marriage.
So what you described before about coming home and to see her with your child dancing,
that's the second one.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, I've been married twice, and
so you've
2 daughters to different mothers. Yeah.
Right. And no judgment there. I'm just curious.
Of course not.
Again,
no.
You and I don't know each other's stories. You probably know more about me than I know about you.
But I'm sure there's a lot of men that would
yes.
have that similar type of arrangement. And it was an arrangement by default. It wasn't that that's what I wanted to do. It was just.
How did that separation go? Was that?
The first one was good. The second one was tough, and I'll talk about.
So the first one, why was that good? And it was just amicable.
Oh, it wasn't right. I was waiting.
No, but I mean, in terms of the separation, you still had access to your child.
Again, that was the courts, the legal, helped me get access to my daughter back then. But I was so young and so naive. And
did your parents play a role in that, in terms of that's their grandchild as well, that they would want access to?
Yeah, but I'm not sure. Again, the role of the grandparents were prominent back then. It was, I guess they were more disappointed that it went the way it did. And, I didn't have, I just thought, again, you talked about self-serving others, and that's what it was. I was serving others, really, about the right thing to do was to get married. But once I was in it, I realised, this is not right. Alcohol was part of my story back then, and I started sort of, I found alcohol really just for connection. But the oxymoron is that it was the very thing that disconnected me.
When did alcohol become a problem for you?
Probably, I would say, and I'm not kidding, 19, I reckon. Coming down from the country, it was interesting. I found a footy club. Thursday night after selection, you go out and have a drink. Friday night, don't tell the coach before the game. I'd go to all these different bars, and Saturday night we had drink cards. You played well, you got a drink card. The Boardwalk nightclub in Banana Rally were our sponsor. You played well, you got a drink card. So not that I got one every week, but I was fortunate to get in the best, so I got a drink card. And then Sunday afternoons, I was in the Flower or in Port Melbourne, or the Oasis. I was in North Melbourne. It was sort of a popular haunt back then. A lot of AFL players would go. And this is the thing. Monday night, the grain store it's having in King Street, $15 all you could drink. $15.
Wow.
So there I was, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 nights out of the 7. You couldn't possibly, fund that these days.
No.
But that's what it was.
Was that a social connection for you as well?
It was, absolutely. It was a social connection, but it was feeding the ego, and it certainly wasn't feeding the soul back then. And then,
so with your daughter, your first daughter, you didn't have much contact.
I fought for it, and paid for it.
Yeah,
but I did.
And how's that relationship today?
Strained. Yeah, it is. It's strained. But
why?
I say that I had a porta cot set up in a place in Brunswick. Get her obviously the cot would suggest at a very young age, but she's a very successful businesswoman. She's a very very good mother of 2 young children.
So you're a granddad.
I'm a granddad. Yeah, I'm a granddad.
Yeah. Do you see your grandchildren?
Occasionally, not as often as I'd like.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you think you're on track to maybe get better relationships there?
I've got to hand that over and pray on it. That'll happen one day. But she was certainly someone that I had harmed, not from a physical sense, but through my drinking.
Yeah.
And I won't go down that track. That's a whole not different area. But
although you would like to talk about your journey out of into sobriety, though, which
happy to,
which is amazing. I think anyone that I work with that finds their way out of substance dependency is either lucky, amazing, strong. I don't know what the word is, but I think probably lucky if you can make a new relationship with it.
For me, the term I use is I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's the best way I sum it up. And
how many years has it been? 6?
6.5.
6.5. Yeah.
I'm no spiritual giant, but I'm certainly.
But you did mention spirituality, though.
Absolutely.
And I said to you, has that always been part of your life? And you laughed at me.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And I was trying to be something that I wasn't. I had this hole in the soul, and I was, I'd probably make enemies before I'd made friends in the end, and I needed help. And rehab's not part of my story, but certainly the gift of desperation is. And we don't regret the past or shut the door on it, but we certainly, open ourselves up to another way of living and another way of life. And I'm fortunate, and I say fortunate because there's a lot of people out there suffering that haven't found the solution, but I have found the solution.
Mm. Did you ever feel like you were in denial about your problem?
Oh, 100%. 100%. My idea of an alcoholic was in a brown paper bag underneath a bridge with a big long trench coat, and certainly that's not my view now. I've got a completely different view over that time, 6.5 years. It doesn't discriminate, and the people that I've met, and quite some famous ones too, for what that's worth, it can rob you of your freedom.
Mm. I mean, I'm almost 4 years in, and I say to people, they talk about compromise. What do you need to compromise in terms of not drinking? So it's the compromise I would have to make to go back to drinking, which would be huge. I would have to compromise all of my happiness, all of my freedom, everything about me. I would have to compromise if I were to go back and drink again.
The term cease fighting is really huge. That talked about the relationship with my daughter. Yes, it is estranged, but I hand that over now. And cease fighting people, places and things. Resentment is the number one killer of alcoholics.
Yeah.
I don't carry resentments anymore.
That's right. So when you're talking about a footy club that hands over drink cards as rewards, I was actually at a construction conference last year, I think. I can never remember what year we're in. And I kid you not, it was in Brisbane, and they had an open bar that was going to be opened after lunch, but they announced they would bring it forward to 11 o'clock. And that everyone was so happy about that. This was a 2-day conference. So day one, the bar open bar at 11 o'clock, midway through day one. Not even midway through day one. And I was just so flabbergasted. I could not because I'm sober myself. It's just like, how is that going to be constructive in any way? Especially given the state of, people that come into the construction industry where alcohol is such a huge problem. It just did not make sense to me.
Back then, Rae, I spoke a language of victimese.
Victimese, I like that.
So it was pour me another drink. But anyone that wanted to hear my story, whether they liked it or not, I was a victim, and I really had to change that narrative, and today I have with, through the help of a program and a sponsor.
And meditation.
Meditation, pray every day.
Yep.
Yeah. I do a gratitude every night. I get on my knees.
Yeah.
And thank God for what I have in my life today, and that's, she's one of them, and the partner in my life, and she introduced me to Buddhism as well, so very different outlook on life, and I'm just blessed that she's in my life today, and I in the morning I do the drill. I get on my knees and pray and do a daily reflection, and then I ask for guidance and strength, and then I meditate. I meditate between 5 and 10 minutes every day.
What does a difficult day look like for you?
It doesn't matter, because I can just restart it any time I want.
Well, the question was, what does it look like for you?
A difficult day? When I buy a shit coffee.
How was the coffee that I got you?
That's okay. But, obviously I don't drink alcohol, so I'm a really, self-confessed coffee snob. Like my coffee, but I guess, I'll answer it best this way. I used to be a people pleaser. Sure, it's good to be liked by people, but I ain't going to bend myself into a pretzel to have someone like me. It doesn't worry me anymore. What people think of me is none of my business.
I like that.
So, what is it now? I don't know. Job, you always go to a new job, people are trying to test you, see what you're made of, test your limits, and experience a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I
mean, given your work environment, your high risk, heavy industry, high pressure, big complex infrastructure projects, they are very pressurized, and there is a lot of focus on productivity here in Australia, and productivity sits in sectors like the ones that you work in, infrastructure, construction, mining, and I, have my own model that you probably would have seen when I spoke, and it's about, if productivity is a focus in terms of our economy and men occupy most of those sectors that produce for us, then dead, disengaged and injured men are going to really, really impact productivity, so why aren't we doing anything about it? And, you know, just even some of the stuff that you're talking about now, how you've gone from, you know, not taking care of yourself in many respects, and as you said, you were sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's many men turning up every single day, often operating, you know, if you imagine one of those big cranes in the city, you imagine a man who's sick and tired and sick of being sick and tired operating one of those. Would you want to be anywhere near one of those things? Probably not. But
such an outcome-focused industry.
Yeah, but how are we not capturing, if we know that this is a commonality?
Yeah. We
understand suicide, 75% of suicides are men, and the stats within construction is huge. 95% of workplace deaths are men. If you take those stats alone, why would you not be investing in the stuff that's outside of the workplace before it even gets in?
Yeah. It's quite simple. Back in my day, it was Grocon Construction, say. It was a 2-year project, and you talked about the multi-story city projects that you visit. That used to be a 2-year project. Today, that 2-year project, you'd be looking at 18 months because we are so outcome focused that commercial risk is so huge that if these blow out, you know, talk about the big build stuff, there's a lot of focus on those projects.
But you said the answer is quite simple. So what is the answer to that?
We've got to invest.
In what?
In people.
How?
Well, you coming to sites, me doing talks. You know, you and I talked about a risk register. Yeah, it looks great. It looks fantastic. We tick, 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 tick. But we don't spend a time. It could be an hour a week. You know, I'll give you an example. All right. Simon Sinek calls it, good leaders eat last. How many leaders in my 37 years have said, picked up the phone and go, what does your week look like? Is there anything I can do to help? Let me know how you're travelling. 25-second that took. There's not too many people in my 37 years that have done that. I can think of one. Because we are so outcome focused. We're not interested in the machinations of your private life and what's going on at home. We're not interested in that.
Well, nor should workplaces, because, I mean, again, they're there for, like, you know, the productivity piece is real, so it's very outcomes focused. You've got to deliver a project. So, no, we don't want to be spending all of our time wondering what's going on in people's private lives. But if we're creating systems that capture risk, that are associated with hazards. So you've got a hazard in a workplace, which is a giant crane in the middle of the city. The risk is how many people get on that crane and in what state they're getting on that crane. So it's not about policing people. It's, as you said, it's about offering opportunities for people to be able to manage self.
The point I'm trying to make is that the high consequence incidents are rarely caused by a single factor. I think, in my experience, human decision-making, system weaknesses, and gaps in communications or process, I call it the Swiss cheese effect. They all line up, and then you get your incident. You know, if you've got, you know, I'm not here to talk against any program that's good, but the one that springs to mind, it's very prominent on the construction calendar. You know, and, you know, OK Day. I mean,
are you okay?
Are you OK Day? I've had companies that want to have scones and cups of tea and meat and give me a break. Give me a break. What men are going to sit around us eating scones and having a cup of tea and opening up to others about their life? I can't think of too many. Not your hurly-burly steel fixer
but
and your concreters.
But it's also not practical. And then, you know, if you look at a hypothetical Harry and the trifecta, because you know, when you look at, say, Are You OK Day, and again, I'm not being dismissive of it because it probably does save lives. However, the focus on men's mental health. So when I talk about what I do for a job, people will assume that I deal with men's mental health. I deal with men's health because it is completely integrated. So if we're just focusing on throwing money or programs towards men's mental health, we miss the thing that really kills men, which is that trifecta: relationship breakdown, financial distress, and custody of kids issues. We know that probably about 90% of male suicides here in Australia have something to do with that. So Are You OK Day is not going to solve that, but men having access to finance, to their kids, to legal advice, you know, if a man even just had access to his kids, that's probably going to reduce the risk of him killing himself by at least 50%. And also having access to finance or access to somewhere to live is going to alleviate that. Not that a workplace can provide those things explicitly, but they can provide support to help you get to those things or educate you in how you can, you know, arrange your mortgage, access your super, what legal support is there for free through EAP. Stuff like that that people don't know aren't being promoted within workplaces. So, you know, men and women need practical stuff when they're going through really hard shit. Pardon the swearing. But not a cup of tea and a scone. That can be additional to the other stuff. It's not that you'd have to take it away, but there has to be the practical things.
So are we in fierce agreement that it's window dressing? Yeah.
I'm nodding. I'm nodding. I think I have to be supportive of just about everything because everything has its place, but I think it's the combination of things. It just can't be one or two things isolated. It has to be a whole range of things because if you take health and safety into your home, we just do it so naturally. You know, the way we typically arrange our homes and our children is all around safety, but we don't need manuals to do that. We don't need compliance to do that. We just do it because we have this inner consciousness that makes us want to be safe and makes us want to keep our families safe. Why wouldn't you just do that in the workplace?
I was asked once at an interview, what does safety mean to you? And my answer was this: safety to me is while you're working when no one is watching.
Can you say that again?
While you're working when no one is watching.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Because, you know, you can put your gloves and your glasses and all your PP on when there's the bosses are around and there's a group walk or something like that. But how about when no one's watching? When no one's watching, that's how I work, you know. And I don't know, I just see construction sites emblazoned with posters and more posters and posters on posters. And I see, you know, the evolution of mental health first aiders. I can honestly tell you now, there's people on that mental health poster would be the last people on this earth that I'd go and talk to.
Yeah. Look, and I don't think that's caught up yet. That's a whole recruitment process.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
You know, you have to recruit the right people into those roles, and they can be very, very effective. But I was gonna ask you something about burnout because I was working with a scaffolder the other day, and we've been working together for quite some time. And he said to me, he goes, Rae, he goes, I don't know what's going on with me at the moment, but you know, I'm really inspired by what I'm doing because I'm running this company and it's really great. He said, but I just can't get out of bed in the morning. I'm just feeling tired for no reason. Doesn't matter how early I go to bed. Doesn't matter what I do with my diet. I'm just feeling wrung out, drained, and I'm just not feeling like my spark's igniting. Anyway, so we went through this whole thing and I said, Tim, I'm going to send you some stuff on burnout. And he goes, I'm not burnt out. Burnt out is like when you're just overwhelmed and you're exhausted and tired. He goes, I'm taking care of myself. I said, you don't understand that burnout is a workplace phenomenon. It is something that actually happens in your brain you have no choice when you tip over from managing to not managing. And so I sent him some information on burnout. He goes, how did I not know this? And I know you wrote an article recently. I saw it on LinkedIn. It was very short, but it was a nod to burnout. Do you have something to say about it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was a result of of me last year, Ray. I got this horrendous illness called shingles.
Oh.
And half my face was blistered so bad that I couldn't open my right eye for 2 weeks. And I'm told that's a result of stress, and I'm sure it wasn't a result of coaching the under-17s and having petulant midfielders that weren't doing what they were told. But it was probably part of losing my older sister in May, who was essentially like my second mother. She was 19 when I was born. So you can imagine that that country, atmosphere, the environment was the construction company, building company was running. Mum was occupied doing everything from making sandwiches to doing payroll. So my older sister was like my mother. So I lost her in May. I was coaching local footy at a pretty high level, performing well, but the workplace I was stressing out, and I wasn't really quite aware or listening to my body, and I got these little herpy type little things that were appeared sort of under my eye, and I asked a nurse, a friend who I was close to, I said, "Kate, do you think this is shingles or anything?" She goes, "Oh, I don't think so." Just keep an eye on it, which was ironically on my eye. Within 6 hours, I was in the hospital, having blood tests, feeling really nauseous, and that was it. Yeah.
Wow. Had
to go to the eye and ear and get tests. They were concerned about the infection behind the eyeball, but there's no prescribed medication really. It's antiviral, and
you have to sit it out.
You got to sit it out.
Yeah. So how did you manage through that?
I couldn't drive a vehicle. I had to take time off work, which I hate doing, but I had to get good at it because I was sick, and the first 7 days it is contagious. Couldn't see the dear one. There's a lot of FaceTimes and calls and things of that nature, and even going, we were in the hospital and they put a big bandage on my face because I was scaring all the people in the emergency ward.
Oh.
And that's no joke. That was, I looked like the Elephant Man, and but because it's neurological, I couldn't put my head on a pillow.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks.
Wow.
Just think of that for a minute. It was horrendous. I've never had pain like this in my life.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very painful too.
I've heard it around the ribs and the shoulders and the back, but in the head and on the face, it was,
Did you make any changes to your life after that to reduce stress in your life?
Yeah, I probably did. I probably looked at my week and, take some me time and probably added to the vinyl collection, to be quite honest. Yeah. So that was a good way of doing something positive. And again, I love my music, and that was sort of a pastime that I thought I could devote some time and just winding down a bit. And I've got the best coach in the world, and she tells me that you're doing too much, you're fitting too much in. So I made a commitment to her and to myself that at the end of the year that I would finish up on a project. I was doing overtime like I've never worked before, the Saturday nights, Sunday nights, mornings, everything, just to get this project over the line. And the commitment was this, that we're going to go to Vietnam and Cambodia, and we're going to spend 5 weeks overseas. And the Department of War, Peace and Finance next to me said to me, book it. So I did.
Wow.
So
and you went?
We went.
How was it?
just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and we'd been to Cambodia before in Vietnam, but this is a little bit different. It wasn't a part of a tour. We wanted, you know, we went on the Hajiang Loop, back of a motorbike, right up to the Chinese border and in Vietnam, and just, the food and the smell and the culture is just, it gets me every time. And, you know, and then going to the place of worship like Angkor Wat, you know. And what I love about Cambodia so much is obviously the Pol Pot history is etched in our pages. You know, they were, you know, they've gone through so much, you know, and 2.5 million people slaughtered.
Oh, yeah.
That they're the happiest, most peaceful people I've ever met in my life, and I can learn from them, and I have, and you know, we love that country, and my partner's got sort of an ex-brother-in-law that lives over there too, so you know, we visited them and spent some time with them as well. So it was time spent well that we had to, you know, you can't keep on. You talk about burnout. You've got to recognise the signs, and you were able to point them out to someone that they were unrecognisable by the sounds of that. And
well, it's just I think men in, say, these professions won't identify with it, because when they feel it, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to go to work. That means I'm not earning money. It's also, my identity is work. So if I'm not working, what am I? So there's lots of things that tied up in manhood and how men see themselves, especially if you come from traditional kind of attitudes that you've grown up with, that you just become part of that. So I think that's where we're still getting there in these sectors. Like even the other morning when I was out at John Holland's, I got there before 6 a.m, and they were all there, and standing around, you're just watching them cold, and you go, not long ago you were in a nice warm bed. And I always have discussions with men, say, did you choose this profession? And 9 times out of 10, it's like the answer will be yes. How did you choose it? Well, I was asked to leave at school. I was told I should get a trade. I couldn't continue education. My parents broke up. So I said, well, that's not really a choice then, is it? It's no choice. And do you have any choices? Now, could you change your profession where you could go and do something else? It's like, well, no, this is all I know, and I don't have any education. So, these hordes of men that are just turning up every day, often serving other people, it's just relentless. And there's no answer for it once you're in it. But we can be doing things better upstream. Instead of pulling bodies out downstream, we can be stopping them from falling in.
Why are we swimming against the tide? We've got a skill shortage in this nation, and that's...
Well, the answer to that was just bring in more people, and don't provide any infrastructure for that or integration, or just bring women into the workplace. Fantastic. That's great. Still not really set up for that though. And unfortunately, biologically, there are jobs that women aren't just they're just not going to do.
Correct. It makes me think, I managed 120 apprentices, a previous employer, and was responsible for about 6.5-7 million a year in turnover. So there's a lot of focus on building it and making the brand appealing again. But that recruitment process was really interesting for me, Rae, where I want to see the person, the young school leaver that has a desire to be a tradesperson, male or female.
Yeah.
But you get the phone call from the mother. Oh, can you give Harley an apprenticeship? Sure. Can I send you his resume? How about Harley come to me and present the resume himself? And it was like shock horror. You what? You want him to come and see you? Well, yeah, I'll be employing him, not you.
That's right.
But these mothers, they don't get it. There's a lot of mothers out there, again, not disrespecting, motherhood out there, but sometimes just get out of the way.
Or let them. So that, just a term, let them. And what does that mean? Just let them do, let them fail, let them try, let them have a go. Because it's your value system and your belief system that's getting in the way, because you want to see a certain outcome the way that aligns with you, but it's not aligning with them.
That's right.
Alignment is not agreement. And, just trusting your child that they can fall, and your job is to be there to catch them, not to do it for them.
And that morphs into my coaching career, Luckily.
Are you still coaching now?
I actually stepped down this month. And but that under 15.
Why did you step down?
Parents.
Causing you stress?
There's some kids, I run a very, very, let's say, high-end program. Expectations are high. This is the coaching model. This is how I'm going to deliver it. And upon appointment, I said these very words: how do you know I'm the right person? We watched you in the Premiership Cup I said, that's under 17s. They're a lot older, a lot mature. So these are boys. These are 15, 14-year-old boys. Anyway.
Smack bang in the middle of puberty.
100%. And my message is this, that feedback's a gift. Feedback is a gift. A lot of coaches don't offer it. I offered it. Parents don't always like feedback. It's not delivered at them. It's delivered to their player, their son. So here I am trying to talk about accountability and discipline. And if you don't want to demonstrate that, you come on the sidelines and we'll have a chat about it. And, what I'm trying to do, and the evidence is there and the data suggests that you're trying to build resilience in young men, that when they fail, they're prepared for it, That growth isn't always going to be nice.
It hurts. And did you ever have growing pains behind your knees when you were growing up?
No, I didn't.
It's quite common, common in boys, more common in boys than girls, but it hurts. It really hurts.
But trying to grow these young men and preparing him for senior ranks, the growth in the game and growth in your development isn't always going to be nice, and it's not going to be what you want, but you're going to be better for it. Because when I'm looking at when you give a 50-metre penalty away, or when you make a mistake, it's not the actual act of making a mistake and giving away a 50-metre penalty. It's a reaction after that. It's okay to make mistakes. But grow from it, learn from it. And some wanted it in that group and some just didn't. If you come here for shits and giggles, you're probably in the wrong team, is what I said.
Yeah, well, what's the point of, it's competition, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't have a competition without being competitive.
Or
we tried that in the 90s with parenting. Remember when they took away all of the place holding, like there was no such thing as first, second and third, and everyone was a winner. We're seeing that contingent in workplaces at the moment, where it's just really, really difficult for those people to understand how to behave within the work community.
Well, a really close friend, I've got a lot of time for each other. He coaches a high level in the senior ranks, and he sent me a really lovely message in the week, and you enjoying your weekends now? I said, I am. Thank you. And he's like, sadly what I'm seeing is that parents are driving good people out of the game of football. That good people are going to be lost, and it's a problem on steroids these days. So he's seeing it at his club. We're at different clubs.
So how then you manage the expectations of parents then? Like, should there be more integrity around what that is?
Well, the deal was that I'd take the job because I had 2 team managers, both mothers. They weren't very supportive of it all, to be quite honest with you. So I just simply said, I'm ready to pass the baton on.
Yeah.
It's like, we're pretty high up on the ladder, but no, the time's right. Consulted my fiancée, and she's like, she runs a restaurant.
All right.
And, she works sort of late at night, obviously, and Saturday nights. And my time with her was being impaired through my involvement with junior football on Sunday. So I said, no, we're going to dedicate the Sundays together now. So, I left on good terms and just ready to part.
Well, thank goodness for that, because you wouldn't have been able to come on the show today.
Correct. And, coaching a footy team, it's a thankless job, but it's the preparation, the development and the planning that starts way back in October last year. The season doesn't start to April.
No.
My job was to prepare these young men for senior ranks, and like I say, some wanted it, some didn't. A lot of young people, they don't really have the male model in their life. And I'm very aware of that. They pull on that jumper and run out with their mates. That's probably the biggest connection they have in their week.
Well, that's the tragedy of around the situation that we're speaking about today, is when children are disconnected from a parent. They need both parents in equal measures, and not one parent is better than another. Who's to decide what is a good parent? But kids need access to both, and otherwise that affects the development. You talk about development before. You can't develop without both of your parents in the way that's going to give you the best possible chance of, understanding how to get from A to B.
The sum of equal is nothing. So I just make sure that I can throw my arms around those young people that don't have that and just say, I'm always here, the phone's always on, you ring me at any time, and just basically say that I'm available for you.
Well, that's the football people?
100%.
So where's a boundary on that for you then? If you're available 24/7, what happens when you're in Cambodia for 5 weeks? What happens then?
I took calls in Cambodia, don't tell my fiancée.
Well, that's very magnanimous of you, but I always, my ears always prick up when I hear people say I'm available to you at all times, because that's what causes things like burnout and causes shingles and causes all kinds of things. When you have 10 kids coming at you, then, your dog gets run over and, you have stove breaks, and all these things mount up because there's no boundaries on that. I mean, I know in my world, I'm seeing sometimes thousands of people in a week, depending on what setting I'm in, and I have to have a boundary around who has access to me. I would never say, you've got eternal access to me, because I would not be able to do my job.
Well, out of the group of 21, there was probably about 4. So it's not a huge number, Ray. No,
but we just have to be very careful. And this isn't directed at you, but it's a big one for me. People have to be very careful about what is help.
Undeniably.
And where help comes from. A lot of people want to help because there's a deficiency inside of them where, they've had an experience of life. So I just want to help other people. It's like the parents. I don't want harm to happen to my kids. I don't want what happened to me to happen to anyone. So therefore, I want to help. And as soon as you say that, you might need to wind that back. Because it's always a dangerous thing. It's even, I always use the analogy of homeless people. And so often you'll hear, I saw a homeless person today and I gave them, a sandwich and a coffee and they didn't even want it. They gave it back to me, and how rude is that? I said, did you ask them if they wanted a sandwich and coffee? Do they like sandwiches and coffee? Because they're homeless doesn't mean they don't have a choice about what they like. So why instead wouldn't you just go and sit with that person on the ground and just be there with them? Why wouldn't you do that? Why does there need to be a transaction of what you perceive as help? Because actually just being in presence of somebody else and saying, hey, what does it feel like being you today? That's a really good thing to do.
I love that quick share thing. I really love that story.
I think I learned that when I went to university to study my profession, and we started, it was in the first few months, and we had to do role playing around counselling. And I'm very transactional, and I'm really, really good with people in my mind. So I go and do my role play with a person, and I get their problem and I race them through it, and I package it up and I give it back to them in a beautiful box going, there you are, you're fixed. And the university lecturer said, wow, I think that person's now just going to go and kill themselves. I'm going, why? That was amazing. They said, no, you didn't listen. You had your own agenda. You knew what you wanted to fix, and yes, you fixed it. But not once did you even look or consider what might be going on for that person, because there was one thing that you'll always know about people, and that is F all nothing. Ever. So don't ever assume, and that was my biggest lesson in life. So I don't give advice and I don't help. And I know that even if I've sat with a person for years, I know nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a guide to human beings, because quite often we don't even know what's going on for ourselves.
I found a body on a job once.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because we've got like 12 minutes of a show to go, and that's a really big one too.
I found a body on a job, and I don't laugh, but yeah, I just sat with that man and called it 000, obviously, but you know, he's hypothermic, been there overnight. I could see on his face he probably had a wound the size of an orange. He'd been bashed and left there overnight, and I don't know whether he survived. But it's always interesting when I hear your comment, and it's so true. We don't know people. I got back to the office. People go, did you hear there was a homeless man found? And my reply was, he was homeless, was he? Do you know that? Oh, yeah, he was homeless. I said, right. I said, because I found him. I don't know if he's homeless. And just walked away.
That's right, the assumptions that people make.
Absolutely. We dress it up to what we want it to be.
Or what our belief system tells us.
Belief system, yes.
To make us comfortable so we can go home at night with all the answers. Now, on that note, that is a big one to come off, but we've got, only about 12 minutes of the show to go. So I do have to call out, we have discussed a lot on the show today, and if any of the themes or topics that we've spoken today have brought up uncomfortable feelings for you who've listened in, or you guys here today, help is always available. Not always perfect, but Australia, we have some really, really good support services. So here in Australia, Lifeline, everyone's familiar with that, 131114, 24/7. If you don't feel comfortable with the person that you're speaking with, just hang up, call back, and you'll just get another person. Keep doing that until you find somebody that resonates with you. Suicide callback service, the same, 1300 659 467. And my favourite is Head to Health. Head to Health is government funded. It has got thousands of printable, clickable, downloadable, watchable, face-to-face resources. Any way you want it, it's there. So you can visit Head to Health, headtohealth.gov.au, or 1-800-595-212. It's national, it's free, and it connects you with a whole bunch of stuff. I'm also very happy to share that all of my shows that you listen to, the show that you listened to today, if you want to hear it again or get somebody else to have a listen, it's available anytime on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and its original home on YouTube. So I'll be back on Sunday the 19th of June. No, July that will be, because we're already in June. We've already had the 19th of June with another amazing guest. I don't even know who that is yet. Since I just got back from South America recently, and since then I've been unable to really take life, well, when I say take life seriously, I think my experience there was so profound in such a big part of the world that there are things that just don't seem as urgent to me at any time. So getting a guest a month ahead of time doesn't seem to be one of the urgent things on my agenda. So that's when I'll be back, though. And it will be an amazing guest. So stay tuned for next. We've got Paula Hogg, who will be giving us a very relaxing, lazy Sunday afternoon at 3WBC. And she's been presenting, and we've got Villa telling Harry off for sniffing. We gave Harry some instructions before the show. Don't bang on the panel. Don't breathe heavily into the mics, and he's done all of it. So thank you also to Mike Hagan, who is so committed to the show, helps me produce the show every month to take out all the sniffing and banging. So Mike will erase all of that. And I believe Mike is listening in. He's not only a fabulous musician himself, but Mike and I work on the circuit together. You mentioned before, Harry, that, one day you'd like to pack up tools and just go and do this kind of work.
Sure.
I had the same conversation with Mike Hagan many years ago. He was head of HR, health and safety at Bosch, which is a big international company. He had a very big role there.
Massive.
And I said, well, why don't you do it? And to this day, it's been years in now, and he's extraordinarily well known on the circuit. He does an incredible job with organisations, and he just did it. So we collaborate a lot, and I don't know what I'd do without Mike Hagan. So I'm very grateful for him. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's like it blew me away when you said, yes, I'll do that. What did you think when I asked you? Was it an immediate yes or?
Oh, without any hesitation at all. For me, today is quite different, as I've sort of conveyed throughout this morning, and just living life on life's terms is what I do today.
So what does it feel like being you right now?
Yeah, great.
No, I need something more than that.
No, it's, yeah, yeah. 1 minute you're winding up, and then 1 minute you're winding me up, the next minute you're telling me you need more than that. So,
yeah, great.
But no, look, I'm more calm. I talked about it, some sort of processes and some sort of changes in my life, and I adopt today, and I'm not racing around trying to fix everything, and most of all, I'm not trying to be perfect and not that people pleaser that I once was. I take time for myself, and I certainly serve others where I can, certainly people that reach out.
But you're not going to be on a 24-hour call.
No,
anymore.
I'm available and present.
That's a much better way of
looking at it. And today I don't feed the ego.
And you're going to see the Mighty Tigers at the G?
Oh, of course.
And who are they playing today?
North Melbourne.
Oh, right. Well, my granddaughter, Evelyn, went to see her first match last night, Collingwood. And
they won.
Yeah, they did win. Who was it?
Port Adelaide.
Port Adelaide. That's right. So she's about to turn 3, and my daughter Rose is a very dedicated Collingwood supporter. Goes every week to see her team. So she was pretty proud last night to take Evelyn to her first match. So it's very, very exciting. Well, I hope they win today. It's a good day for it. Yeah,
like that's the Sunday I talk about. The time I can now avail to my partner.
Yeah.
That when we'll go to a nice restaurant in Victoria Street, Richmond, we like eating Vietnamese food, and that's what we do. And
doesn't get much better than there. Or apart from here in Box Hill as well, does very good Vietnamese
dumplings.
Yes,
I believe are quite good and popular.
Yes, yes. Ask my son Rory. Now, we have our very last special guest song request. Well, do you know what? We didn't play half of the songs. In fact, we only played one.
Disappointing.
Out of 4. Well, would you have preferred to have talked or played songs? Because there was no way I was shutting you down at all. So you can choose what's left. You can choose one off your list. So I'll tell you what, for the folks, you've got, we played Collective Soul, didn't we?
No.
Oh, you've got The World I Know by Collective Soul. You've got Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis, Walking Into Doors by Archie Roach, or Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan, which is 6 minutes and 12 seconds. You're not going to be able to play that one.
Yeah, let's go with Collective Soul.
Oh, that was my favourite. Do you know what? You introduced me to these songs, reintroduced me to songs I've not heard in ages. I thought, these are great. I'm so glad I've now got them on my list. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart, Hypothetical Harry. Thank you for being him for me today and for all the people that are listening in.
It's my absolute pleasure, Rae. Really enjoyed it. And, I hope people out there listening can just take a little gem, whatever that may be or look like, to improve themselves.
I'm sure they will. And also remember, if you want to improve the health, safety and well-being of people in your workplace, just don't be an arsehole.
It helps. It goes a long way, doesn't it?
It does. It's so true. I'm going to get a T-shirt. See ya.